Hello, book lovers, and welcome to Authors Love Bookstores from a Mighty Blaze. I'm your host, Joe Moldover, and I am so happy to be back here with you. Today, I am delighted to welcome author Sarah McCoy. Sarah McCoy is the New York Times, USA Today, and international best-selling author of Marilla of Green Gables, The Mapmaker's Children, The Baker's Daughter, a 2012 Goodreads Choice Award for Best Historical Fiction, the novella The Branch of Hazel in Grand Central, The Time It Snowed in Puerto Rico, and Pride in Providence. Her work has been featured in Real Simple, The Millions, Your Health Monthly, Huffington Post, Read It Forward, Writer Unboxed, and other publications. She's the host of the NPR WSNC Radio Monthly Book Talk program, Bookmarked with Sarah McCoy, and a board member for the literary nonprofit Bookmarks. She has taught English writing at Old Dominion University and at the University of Texas at El Paso. She lives with her husband, an orthopedic sports surgeon, and their dog Gilbert in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where she is working on her forthcoming summer 2021 novel for HarperCollins. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Also with us is Beth Sufer-Buss from Bookmarks Bookshop. Welcome, Beth.
Welcome. Hi, everybody.
We're so happy to be there in the store with you. And Beth, we want to start out by letting our viewers learn a little bit more about your bookstore. So we have prepared a few questions for you. First, you are located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So for those of us who are coming to you from other parts of the country, tell us a little bit about the community that you serve.
So Winston-Salem is in the center of North Carolina, which is great. We're in between the mountains and the coast. We are actually the city of arts and innovation. So we have a really vibrant arts scene here in town and lots of cultural experiences, but also this really innovative business environment. So we're really lucky to be downtown in the heart of everything. But as a nonprofit, our goal is to really support and reach out to all pockets of our community. So we've been working on healthcare drives, books for senior citizens. We have a really vibrant authors in schools program. So our goal is to reach everybody in this town.
That's great. And yeah, and Bookmarks was actually founded as a literary arts nonprofit 15 years ago. Can you just tell us a little bit about that history?
Yeah, so we started as a volunteer-run book festival and then expanded and started having year-round author events. And we added the Authors in Schools program and started selling books at the event and books at festival. And so in going through what's the next step for Bookmarks, the logical kind of adventure for us was to go on getting this space, which is where we host all of our author events and we have story times and, you know, all of the wonderful things that you can do when you have a physical space. So it's been a great adventure. We love having the bookstore to connect with people. And then all of the purchases, the bookstore is an arm of the nonprofit. So all of the purchases in the bookstore go back to supporting our nonprofit mission.
That's awesome. Before we went on air, you gave us a little sort of tour around the bookstore. Can you tell us one unique fact about the space you're in?
So our space used to be an auto garage. When the first time I saw it, it was very different than it is now, but it still had the garage doors on the front. And I've had customers come in and say, oh, I bought my first car here. And I remember going, apparently they had wild Thanksgiving parties here that we have heard about, but it's neat because you can still see the grease stains on the floor and it has a really industrial feel that fits into the heart of downtown, I think.
That's really cool. Now, the Authors Love Bookstores program exists to support independent bookstores during COVID. It's obviously a really difficult and unique time for all bookstores. One thing I want to ask you about is what you find people want to read during this time. What have people been buying over the last several months? What do they seem interested in?
there's a wide range of things, everything from workbooks, so lots of kids' workbooks to work at home. We've had a lot of people asking for romance and fun reads, lots of sci-fi and fantasy to escape things. And then I'm really proud of our community because we've had a lot of people buying anti-racist titles and titles about social change, and using this time to really read and learn and do some hard work. So it's been nice to see that range of things. I looked right before we started, I was like, what's it been like this week? So our kind of popular books this week, we have A Spell for Trouble by Esme Addison. We have an event with them tonight. The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett has been very, very popular with our book clubs and readers. And then Mexican Gothic, which I just finished listening to by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. It's so good. So all over the board.
That's amazing. And tell us a little bit about how Bookmarks has adapted to the COVID crisis. You mentioned that you're having an event tonight. It sounds like you've kept events going. What has it been like to be a bookseller during this time?
We are very thankful for the online environment. So we've transitioned to using Crowdcast for our author events and using Zoom for our book clubs. We are really grateful to be part of this industry because I feel like independent bookstores all over the country have really banded together in Facebook groups and ABA newsletters and trying to figure out the best way to do things. So we started with a ship only business when this started and gradually have added curbside pickup. Right now we have appointment shopping where we're limited the number of people in the store, but we still are keeping the shipping and keeping the curbside pickup. So no matter where people are with their comfort level with the COVID situation, we're trying to meet them in that space.
Got it. Sarah, I'm going to turn to you. So you selected Bookmarks to be featured today. Tell us a little bit about what makes this store special and why you love it.
Well, first off, as you heard from Beth, they just embody the truest spirit of community enrichment. And their mantra or their mission statement is books with purpose. And that's really unique to this particular bookstore. And I have traveled widely across the country, across the globe. I've done international tours. And this is the first time I'd actually been in a setting where it was a bookstore, an independent bookstore selling books, but it's also got that arm of the nonprofit attached to it, which enables it to sort of spread its roots out into the community and really tap into all the different social structures and mindsets and reading tastes and influence how people are not just consuming literature, but how they are growing as people through that literary experience. And I find that so admirable. And when I got here, I just thought this is unique and this is where I'm meant to be. So in fact, within 2 weeks, so we got here from Chicago, we drove in from Chicago, I set down my stuff, my moving truck came with all of our furniture. So that took a week, to sort of be like, where are we? And then I went straight in to Bookmarks. It's the first place I went. And Beth is actually the first staff member I met there on that day that I came in. And I mean, it was kismet. It was meant to be. I walked in, she was there with arms wide open, and she does the same thing for readers. That's what I love about her and her staff. They walk in the door and it's like you're immediately family, your Bookmark family. So all of that just, it really felt like fate. And I tell everyone, it's no hidden secret, she is my book bestie here in Winston-Salem. I absolutely love her.
That's wonderful. I love that. One of the really special things about independent bookstores are the events, the live events. And Sarah, I wonder if you have a memory of an event at Bookmarks or an experience at Bookmarks that stands out in your mind as a particularly unique or exciting or funny or whatever.
Where do I even start? I feel like My entire social life, do you all realize my entire social life revolves around bookmarks? Like when I socialize there, I mean, Beth and I had tea there. No, we go in, we go into Footnote. That's another unique thing about this particular bookstore is that next door to it and connected through this wonderful cafe setting is a Footnote, which is the cafe, and then Foothills Brewery is right next door. And in Foothills Brewery, they do a lot of events, and it's a gorgeous space. The venue looks like something out of a dream. And so most of the events are in that setting, and they cater it, and it is a giant party. It's got lights strung up on the ceiling, and so it almost feels like you're in I don't know, a theater or a show of some sort. Every event feels like a show. And so I think that's really unique to them. And it makes every event a party. It makes you feel like, let me go there as an outing, and because this is going to be fun. And I think that's unique in making books, again, not just accessible, but exciting, and reaching out into the community and saying, this isn't just another place you can go and get books and read, but it's a place you can come as a community and you can bond together and make memories and laugh. I've had Marilla of Green Gables book launch was there, and that certainly stands out in my mind as a very special date. And I couldn't imagine bringing that book into the world anywhere else. It just was meant to be in that setting with that camaraderie and love and family feeling.
That sounds so amazing. You're really making me sort of miss those days when we were doing
Joe,
that.
come on down.
I would love to come. I would love to be there.
I'm fingers crossed we're gonna have a book launch next year.
Is that
So
launch? And by then we'll hopefully have a COVID vaccine, so we'll all be safe.
Yep. We'll launch Sarah's new book, and Joe, you can just come to Winston-Salem.
I'll just be there. I'll just be there to have a drink and to enjoy the book. Beth, question for you. So Sarah is talking about this place as being not just a bookstore, but this real kind of community and kind of hub in Winston-Salem. I mean, what do you think is the secret to creating that type of an environment? I mean, how do you engage with readers? How do you engage with writers? What is the sort of the magic for creating that type of a space?
I think it's what Sarah hinted at about coming to town. And I think it's really the magic of Bookmarks. I am a transplant to Winston-Salem and felt like I was home when I got involved with Bookmarks and found my people. So I really feel like we want to be a home for people. I love it when kids come in and they're like, this is my bookstore. Like, it is theirs. The community helped us fundraise to renovate this space. It is, as a nonprofit, it belongs to all of us. So I think it's making people feel welcome. We try to have a variety of events, so there's something for everyone. We have such a talented and passionate staff and team. And I love it when people come in and ask for a specific bookseller because they've made that connection or they know them from their online reviews. So it's really just trying to be open and welcoming and doing everything we can to help people connect with books with purpose.
That's great. I'm going to turn to some audience questions. Sarah, I'm going to synthesize sort of two writing questions, I guess. I'm going to sort of give them to you at once. So we want to know about your forthcoming novel. I don't know if you're talking about that or giving us any hints about what that's about and what's going on with that. So we'd love to hear about that. And then the other part of it is whether you are able to write and be creative during the pandemic and whether that's been difficult for you. So if you want to kind of speak to sort of the writing process in general and then specifically what the book is.
Yes. Well, I'll start with the second question and then I can go into the book. I was lucky enough to have finished the first rough draft of my new novel before the pandemic hit. So then once it did, I was much more in and I'm sure all writers know this, you have different caps you wear during different phases of a book. So you have the first creative outpour, which I am very neurotic. I shut down. I go into sort of a spacey where I don't shower for days. I don't, I'm like, what time is it? Did I brush my teeth this morning? I can't remember. Let me go check and see if my toothbrush is wet to find out, because I literally just go into that other creative realm. And so I was in that creative realm until about mid-February, and I finished that draft. And then the pandemic hit, and to be honest, I don't think I could have written a new word during that. Some people loved it and made them shut down and feel very focused as writers. And for me, it made me feel panicked about what was going on outside of my office, about the people that I cared about, is the store open right now and they have toilet paper, and in 2 hours they're not going to, so maybe I should go out now and try to, I mean, I was anxious about everything and listening to the news more than I was listening to my own thoughts, and my own thoughts are my character thoughts. So I really was not able to do hardly any writing of any kind, all the way through until, I want to say, May-ish. So instead, my point is, I am very productive. I'm very type A. I wasn't just going to waste all that time floating in. I can't make myself think right. So I put on my editorial cap, and I sat down very objectively, and I said, okay, let me look at the sentence structure. So for this week, I'm going to look at sentence structure, and somehow that worked for me. So then I worked on the actual writing and prose of what I'd already done and edited that. And then I said, okay, now next week, you're going to work on lyricism. How does it sound, the flow of the writing? How does it sound to your ear? So reading it out loud and doing those sort of tactile things. That's how the pandemic, the actual quarantine period. I also gave it to some first readers, one of whom might, I'm not sharing secrets, be on this very blaze, but I shared some sections and some full manuscripts with some early readers to get their thoughts, because again, they were sitting at home, and I thought that might be a good way to use that for both of us. So I've hinted enough at it. The book right now, the tentative title is called Mystique, and it is based on the island of Mystique in the Caribbean, which is a privately owned, exclusive British island that is renowned for being the place that Princess Margaret had her exclusive and private, I'll tell you, it wouldn't be a castle, I don't know what you'd call it, her palace, her mini palace was there where she could kind of do whatever she wished. And it's set in the 70s. And the title will most likely have Mystique in it, but I can't guarantee that it's going to stay I don't think it's going to stay one word. I actually just talked to my agent this morning about the title, and my editor and she and I were kind of throwing around flippantly some variations of it. So that will be out from HarperCollins in summer 2021. It's slated, but the pandemic, I don't know what COVID has done to the publication process. I don't know if it's delayed things. I don't know. Thankfully, as the author, I am just told what I need to do with the characters and the setting, and that's all I really want to be responsible for right now. That's all I can handle. Everything else, the marketing, the publicity, the launching, all of that, I leave in my publisher, HarperCollins, bailiwick, until they tell me to step in and be a part of it. And that keeps us all sane, right?
Yeah, and it sounds like that's going to be an amazing book whenever it comes out. Couple of other questions coming in. Sarah, that was about your next book. We've got a question about your last book. One of our viewers would like to know about your process to research Marilla of Green Gables, and did you go to Prince Edward Island? We talked about this a little bit off air, but tell our audience, because I think it's interesting.
Absolutely. For all of my books, I have always been, and that's what's interesting about this new book is that didn't happen. I have always been a believer in going to the places you write about. For me and my creative process, I always have to stand in that ground, on that perspective of the characters and walk the actual that I'm writing about. So all of my books, I've done that. I've gone to the locations, Germany, El Paso. I've been there. I know these places. Same for Marilla of Green Gables. I actually, like I told Joe before we started, I wrote the first draft of the book before I had ever been physically on Prince Edward Island. And that was so I could get the nuts and bolts of the interior of Marilla down. And I could base it solely on Lucy Maud Montgomery's rendition of Prince Edward Island. Because we have to remember that Green Gables is fictional. It's based on 3 different farms in Cavendish. And Cavendish is the fictional Avonlea. So Lucy Maud Montgomery has a fictional farm in a fictional town on a real Prince Edward Island in a real Canada. So it kind of messes with your mind a little bit. So I needed to base her setting on the fictional, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. I wrote the first draft, and then I went there to compare how the fictional and the real up. And it's funny because Lucy Maud Montgomery, she definitely took some creative freedoms with the island and made it how she wished it could be, and not necessarily how it actually was. So I had to, again, to keep in that spirit, I had to research all of that and decide, as Sarah McCoy, the author, am I going to be true to Lucy Maud Montgomery and the legacy story she's told, or to the reality of what is? And I went with Lucy Maud Montgomery because it's her book and it's her series and it's her Green Gables, and I based it on that. But that was an interesting part of the research process. So yes, I did go. I went to Prince Edward Island in October, and I did not know it was going to come out 1 year later, October. So it's been like Octobers, and the famous quote, "Aren't we glad we live in a world where there are Octobers?" It all just feels very, are you listening, Lucy Maud? Are you up there? You know, so, but I went and I spent about a better part of the month up there, and I got to know her family that is still living up there, and I gave the manuscript to them to read, and I researched through that and through her diaries, and I reread the original series and took copious notes. There was a lot of research that went into it, and lucky for me, I'm a huge Anne of Green Gables fan, so the research felt exciting, and it felt like pleasure, and it felt like, oh boy, now I get to reread Anne of Green Gables for myself. Another funny, interesting tie, Beth read a galley of Marilla of Green Gables, a very, very early copy of it, and she had not read Anne of Green Gables. And we met for tea, one of our first tea dates we went on. We went for tea, and we're sitting there and we're talking about the book, and she said, "I've never read Anne of Green Gables. Is this not true, Beth?" And she turns, at the tea place we're at, they had used books for sale. She literally turns over her shoulder in the little chairs we're sitting on, and she goes, "Oh my God, there's a copy of Anne of Green Gables." And she pulled it out and she bought it, and then she read it then. And
a beautiful copy, like not a, dinged up, it was a nice, beautiful copy, and went home and read it.
And she went home and read it. And I felt like, even in that, I was like, Bookmarks, manager of the bookstore, he's my new best friend, like forever. It was just so many, factors that went into it, but that's a fun little story about.
That's wonderful. I love all of that. And I've also visited Green Gables, and it is a gorgeous place to visit. Beth, I'm going to turn to you with an audience question about what people are reading during the what you were reading during the pandemic specifically. You mentioned I think you mentioned a couple of things that you'd recently read, but you want to tell us a little bit more about what's been speaking to you and maybe recommendations that you have to the audience?
Yeah, I have been all over the place. So one of the kind of perks of being in the book selling world is that we get a lot of galleys of things that have not come out yet. So typically we're reading a few months in advance. But I had some favorites that came out this summer. Memorial Drive just came out this week by Natasha Trethewey. It is a story of her coming to grips and reckoning with the murder of her mother when she was a teenager. And I know that sounds very heavy. It is a beautiful, uplifting story. It's beautifully told, it's so powerful. I think it helps you understand her poetry. It's our signed first editions pick for this month. I have been reading a lot of romance. I'm a big romance fan. I have gotten hooked on the Alexa Martin books. They are about the NFL, but told from kind of the wives and the girlfriends of football players. She is a former football wife. So they are fantastic. There's a new one coming out this fall, but there's 3 in the series. Jasmine Guillory has a new romance out, Party of 2, which is perfect for election season. It's a really smart, funny, sexy romance. And then Amy Popel has a new book that just came out called Musical Chairs that is so funny. I laughed. I typically don't laugh out loud. I laughed so hard that I woke my husband up who was sleeping next to me. It's a great family story told over the course of one summer in New England. It has a musical trio in it, but it's got lots of extended family and friends who are like family. So I've been all over the board a little bit.
No, those are all great recommendations. Sarah, we have time for one more writerly question for you, which is a viewer wants to know whether you have kept a journal during the pandemic that might provide material for another book down the road.
You mean like these?
Those are good examples. Yeah.
I'm at my desk and they're right here. Yeah, in fact, during the pandemic, I finished this. Can you see how I finished this Moleskin and I bought this one, or I already had it ready to go. And yeah, I've already kind of started, but I didn't write anything creatively, but I jotted down lots of not just ideas for new books, but just how I am feeling in this moment, because I felt like that was important to write them down, not even for anybody else's eye ever possibly, but just to remind myself, because I think as human beings, we so quickly forget how something felt, in that moment. And we move on and we think, oh, well, we were quarantined for how long? Oh, it wasn't that bad I don't remember. Can you remember? And I wanted to capture what we were all feeling going through this quarantine. The world has shut down. And then also during the whole Black Lives Matter movement that came through and is still with us and has changed everything about the landscape. So it's like medically and physically we're changed, and spiritually and emotionally as a country we've been changed. And so I wrote down a lot of that here. And again, it could turn into something in the future. It could be absolutely nothing and just something that is part of me as an author needing to get out and to self-evaluate. And I think that I actually had a long conversation about how this pandemic has really brought back self-evaluation. It's forced us all to kind of shut down and be quiet and listen to our own thoughts again. And I think that is a beautiful thing for not just the community, a global community, but I think in terms of storytellers and writers, it has given us that sort of renewed spark of let's really think, let's stop and really, really deep think. So yes, Yes, I have been writing in my just little notes.
That is a great answer. Thank you so much. Beth, we are just about out of time. Can you tell our viewers what book lovers can do to support your store during this time? It sounds like there are online sales, curbside pickup, scheduled visits to the store. How can people engage?
Yeah, I mean, we are always appreciative of any books ordered from us. Visit our website at bookmarksnc.org. But what I really want to invite people to do is come to an online event. We have got multiple book clubs. We have some great events coming up with some really powerhouse authors. We have got some great recommendation programs coming. Next Tuesday, we have a big fall preview of fall books. So all of that, if you go to bookmarksnc.org and go to our event calendar, all the registration information is there. We have a lot of free events. We have a lot of pay what you can events that are kind of open. We want to be really accessible and give people a chance to talk about books and celebrate books in this very strange time.
That's great. Thank you. I want to thank you both so much for being here with me today. To our online audience, I have been with Beth Sufer-Buss from Bookmarks Bookshop in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Go to bookmarksnc.org to stay up to date, to pick up a book. And with Sarah McCoy at sarahmccoy.com. Go there to check out what she's doing, including her forthcoming 2021, we hope, new novel. The store sounds amazing. I look forward to the day when I'm able to come to North Carolina and to visit. It's been delightful spending time with both of you. Thank you. And to our audience, thank you for being here. Come back next Wednesday for more of Muddy Blaze's Authors Love Bookstores. Until then, stay well and keep reading.